everybody, and welcome to Team Peds Experts Live. We're going to have a few moments for everybody to log in. If anybody wants to leave me a comment, tell me where you're coming in from tonight. I'd love to hear. All right. So just a few more seconds and I'll get started, giving everyone a chance to log in. So my name's Beth Heyer. I am a PNP. I work in an integrated mental health practice in Philadelphia, but previously I've worked in developmental pediatrics and worked with kids with neurodevelopmental disabilities for quite a few years. So I'm very, very lucky to come and talk with you tonight about a really important back to school topic for patients and families. We're going to dig in and talk about learning disabilities tonight. Learning issues are such a huge source of stress for children and families. It is so common that families come into our practices right about now, right at the beginning of the school year, asking for our help. And so the things that I want to talk about tonight is how can we, as pediatric-focused NPs, advise families and advocate for children who are struggling in school? How do we tease out what that struggle might be? And is it just inattention? Is it anxiety? Is it a learning disability? Is it a little touch of all of the above? So tonight I'll share some simple talking points about learning evaluations and how to guide families in obtaining them. I'm going to give you a few key takeaways on how to help your patients get the help that they need. We want to talk about how to get individualized education plans, or IEPs, and for those children who already have them, we want to talk about how to guide families to make sure that their children's needs are actually being met and that they're set up for success during the school year. So let's kind of start with your routine or problem-focused patient visit, where we always ask questions about how the child's doing in school. What are your favorite classes? How are you doing socially? Etc. I always like to ask whether teachers have expressed any concerns or if the parent or child have any issues they want to discuss related to school. How are grades? Are there any behavioral issues going on at school? Are there classes that just seem harder or like kids are struggling more in them? Make sure always that you ask about that family history of school-related issues, as there can be genetic disorders associated with learning disabilities or an intellectual disability. And you also want to think about this in the context of your physical exam findings. Do you, for instance, need to consider genetic testing such as a Fragile X PCR, or do you need to refer them out to genetics for an evaluation? Next, if the family is expressing concern, perhaps that the child's inattentive and or hyperactive, you want to make sure that you're administering Vanderbilt rating forms in the office. I hope you all kind of have those and understand how to score them. You also want to make sure that the teachers fill them out at school so that the parents can bring them back for your review. I always keep copies of these in the office. I'm always handing them out and directing parents to drop them back off so that I can review them and score them. I do like to wait until students are back in school for about 2 weeks before I get forms from the teacher, kind of to allow for that honeymoon period of the new school year, etc., to end. I also make sure that I ask what parents are hearing from teachers. It might be on apps such as Classroom Dojo, it may be emails, it might be texts, anywhere where the teachers are communicating directly with the parents. All of that input can help you think about how to best guide the family. Make sure always that you're screening children and adolescents for depression and anxiety. Mental health issues can definitely manifest in school performance issues or behavioral difficulty. In my office, our providers use the PHQ-9 screener. At least once a year, but most certainly more frequently as the need arises. In my specialty clinic, I use one depression screener and one anxiety screener. I use the CADS, KADS, which is a 6-item depression scale. And then I use the GAD-7, which is a 7-item anxiety screener, as my quick tools. If you do not have integrated mental health services in your clinic, refer for school-based services and outpatient therapy. Very quickly, I'm going to give 2 shameless plugs for things that can help you with mental health issues and help you think a little bit more also about these learning issues affecting mental health. Please consider looking into the PNCB, Pediatric Primary Care Mental Health Specialist, or PMHS certification to up your mental health game. Also, if you haven't done so, please participate in the free NAPNAP Cares Mental Health CE to help you develop more comfort in taking care of our children and adolescents who are struggling. There is a learning disorders module among the first set that have come out. We want to make sure that we're referring and treating appropriately. So back to learning issues. Parents often need to ask about what the typical process is at the school for a child who is struggling. They have no idea where to start very often. If parents are concerned about school issues, ask them what, if anything, the school has done thus far to help their child. Simple prompts might be, is your child pulled out for extra help? If they received, and you always want to ask if they've received anything in writing to understand what that extra help might entail. So for your information, there are 3 levels or tiers of response by schools to meet the academic needs of students. This is called RTI, or response to intervention. Tier 1 response is kind of the universal response. It's what every kid gets in the classroom to learn. This is standardized education. Tier 2 support is targeted learning interventions for groups of students who are identified as needing increased supports. So schools can do this based on the child's academic work or on standardized testing results where they look and go, oh, these kids are, they're not in the middle of the pack, they're falling on the lower end. Then there's tier 3 support. This involves identifying specific learning issues through educational testing and providing an individualized and intensive education plan. So parents should talk with the schools about what they're seeing at home, but also remember that their child acts and performs differently at school compared to at home. They should ask how their child is performing in comparison to their peers in the classroom, and make sure that parents understand that learning disabilities can be masked as behavioral issues at school. Falling behind, feeling frustrated, having executive function difficulty that also impacts impulsiveness. All of these things can lead to children acting out, which pulls them out of the classroom for discipline, which further puts them behind in their learning. So we have to ask ourselves, really, how many children are labeled as having behavioral problems when they in fact have significant learning issues? Children with learning disabilities should not fall through the cracks, but they often can. And you, as their nurse practitioner, can advise families on how to request educational testing and determine whether that targeted individualized help is needed. So I keep a template letter for requesting educational testing as one of my EHR smart phrases. So I'll type in IEP letter or educational testing as a dot phrase, and I drop this template letter into their after visit summary for my patients, so that you understand the child's guardians must request an educational evaluation in writing if they have concerns, and nobody's offered this to them yet. It is really easy to find these template letters online that use all of the right verbiage. One of my favorite sites for these sample letters is actually www.understood.org. You can also type sample IEP letters into the search box on websites to kind of find these broad template letters and pull them into to your smart phrases or print out copies of them. I also let families know that they need to get the ball rolling immediately if they have concerns, because this is not an immediate process. Once they request the educational evaluation in writing, School districts have up to 60 days. It can be less depending on the state that you live in, so know your law in your state. But they have up to 60 school days to test the child, develop a written report with all of the results, and provide a written copy of those results to the families. Also, schools can deny the request for testing if they feel that it is unwarranted. And then families go through a process where they file a grievance, which only adds to the amount of time it'll take for testing to occur. Once, however, a child is deemed eligible for services, the school, learning support and special education have up to 30 days to write that individualized education plan. And then they meet with the families. Families have to agree to an IEP in writing. And then they have no longer than 30 days afterwards, school days, for the services that they've delineated to start. If children are in private schools, this is important, they can still request an educational evaluation through their home school district. So educational testing includes both IQ and achievement testing. And there are a lot of different tests that are involved. And again, I'll kind of refer you back to the NAP CARES learning disabilities free learning to learn a little bit more about what some of those names are. But once you get used to looking at evaluation reports, you're going to see some common tests, and you're going to be able to explain those results to families. So I want to quickly refresh your memory on the Individual with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, which is the federal law that provides grants to states to provide free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment for children with disabilities ages 3 to 21. Among the regulations within IDEA is a section called Child Find, and this regulation ensures that within each state, anyone in need of special education and related services are identified, located, and evaluated. So there are 13 categories of disabilities covered under IDEA, and they include specific learning disability, and this can be reading disability, math disability, nonverbal learning disability. It can also include autism, emotional disturbance, sensory impairment such as hearing and vision, speech impairment, and intellectual disability. Another category is this kind of broad other health impairment, which may include ADHD depending on the child's needs and impairment in their executive function. Next, I want to quickly address 504 plans. So Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 is civil rights law that protects children with mental or physical disabilities. The plan covers accommodations or services that the school can offer to remove barriers so that the child can attend school. Know that 504 plans cover a wider variety of disabilities than IEPs, but they may also be followed more loosely. A really key concept here is that if a child has a diagnosed learning disability, a 504 plan is not appropriate. Your patients who have diagnoses such as autism or ADHD may qualify for a 504 plan instead of an IEP, depending on what their needs are. For those children who already have an identified learning disability and have an IEP in place, the thing that you can do is counsel families that IEP goals should be reviewed and updated annually. Parents need to understand what the long and short-term goals are that have been developed for their child's learning. They need to be able to understand how those services will be provided and how often to meet those goals. And then also, how are those goals going to be measured? Anytime IEPs are revised, parents must receive a copy of the new document. There are a lot of, because again, this is federal law, there are a lot of procedural safeguards, which means that there are legal protections for kids with IEPs. So those include confidentiality, that includes receiving things in writing, that also includes the fact that parents can call an IEP meeting when they deem necessary. So if they are concerned that, I think things have gotten worse, please explain to families that it is within their rights to request a new IEP team meeting. Ask parents to bring in those documents to you if they have any questions or concerns. Reading IEPs is a really neat learning opportunity for all of you. I've also mentioned developing a SMART phrase for that letter to request educational testing, but I also have SMART phrases for potential IEP accommodations, for study hints at home, and for self-monitoring skills such as setting reminders on phones and setting timers to do like 10 or 15 minutes of concentrated schoolwork, then getting up and taking a break. So I have a lot of, and I'll talk about a couple of these resources at the end. But it's really, really important that you kind of dig in a little bit and just have a few tools available in the office. Some of my key takeaways for today is one, always, always, always ask how school is going. Dig a little bit and you're going to find out a lot more information. Two, it is important for you as providers to know about your state educational law, including any educational law resources, to be able to guide families who do not know where to start. And sometimes going, well, I'll send them to developmental pediatrics, is kicking the can down the road and actually further prolonging their ability to get some testing done. So a little bit of literacy on your part for about this is going to make a huge difference. My next takeaway is about developing SMART phrases or handouts that include that template letter to request an educational evaluation through the school district. Again, I love the information and great templates that are available on understood.org, and I greatly appreciate that that was put up in the chat. You can link in there. But there are some other great websites for you to check out, including the Learning Disabilities Association of America, and that one is www.ldamerica.org. Again, another great set of resources for you. For your students who are struggling more with the organizational skills, and many children with diagnosed learning disabilities also don't really know, how do they organize themselves, etc. I recommend a book called Smart But Scattered, and that's by Peg Dawson, Dawson, and Richard Guare, Guare. So this book has a lot of fantastic information about improving executive function skills that you can adapt and share with families. The website, www.smartbutscatteredkids.com, also has great printable resources that families can download to help with task initiation, homework planning, other information such as that. Next, I want to say that to be a strong patient advocate, you may have to write letters of medical necessity. This, my patient James is in second grade. He is diagnosed with, and you might also need to advocate for your patients in IEP meetings. I've called in for 10 minutes and provided expert opinion at IEP meetings. So sometimes our families need that additional advocacy. So what I want to do is stop at this time and see if anybody has any questions or comments. Go ahead and type anything in the chat if you have anything. So for your information, this talk is going to be available on the Teen Peds Experts Live webpage through NAPNAP. And again, you can certainly learn more. I strongly recommend, digging in a little bit to the understood.org website, the LDA America website as well. I think you're going to find a lot of great resources. And other than that, I think tonight I'm going to let you all go. Please feel empowered to help to ask the right questions, to provide the right resources, and certainly reach out if you have any questions at all. I can be reached at Beth, Beth.Heuer, Heuer, at temple, temple.org, and I would certainly welcome any emails. All right, everybody, I'm going to thank you again. Have a great night.